correctional facility. And what used to be Thirsties, but I don't even remember what they call it anymore.
If you guys are good, I'm good. Good, everyone good? Trooper James O'Callahan, good? Got it? Brain, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Good morning, Trooper James O'Callahan, New York State Police. Today, August 5th, we have a media release. Thank you for coming. We have a double, which looks like a fatality, obviously still under investigation. It's early. This just happened last night, actually just before midnight on the 4th. With that being said, we can only answer so many questions. The scene is fairly large. The captain's going to go over that aspect of it. But right now, again, we can answer as many questions as we can go through, but it is still a very active crime scene at this point. So now I'm going to turn it over to our captain of our Bureau of Criminal Investigation, Captain Daniel Howard.
Good morning, and thank you for coming. Again, I am Captain Daniel Howard of the Troop A Criminal Bureau of Investigations. On August 4th, 2025, at approximately 11:27 p.m., troopers from SP Collins were dispatched to the area of White's Drive in the town of Perrysburg, Cattaraugus County, which is located on the Cattaraugus Indian Territory of the Seneca Nation of Indians. At that location, the Bureau of Criminal Investigations from SP Collins and other Troop A members began investigating the report of two deceased males, one age 23 and one age 18, both residents of the Seneca Nation of Indians, Cattaraugus Territory. The incident occurred again in a large area throughout the White's Drive. At this time, all members of the families have been notified, and we are working closely with them as well as with the crime victim specialist for Troop A. Our area of investigation remains active, but we believe at this time there is no active threat to the public. We continue to investigate, and again, we believe there may be charges pending in the future. State Police were assisted on scene by members of the Seneca Nation of Indians Marshals, by the Cattaraugus County Sheriff's Department, the Erie County Sheriff's Department, the Gowanda Police Department, and the Gowanda Fire and EMS. Additionally, we received support from the Seneca Nation's President J.C. Seneca. Following this, I'll be taking a few questions, and after the question portion is over, we will be offering additional updates via press release through the Troop A Public Information Officers. Yeah, absolutely. As in any situation like this where there's multiple victims, we're always going to try to respond with every asset available until we truly grasp the situation and understand what we're investigating. This was the case in this situation as we had multiple scenes, all within the White's Drive area, but we were not aware at that time if we had, many shooters, many more victims, etc. So we responded to the scene with every asset that we and our partnering agencies could provide until we got comfortable with the scene and knew what we were investigating.
Sorry, did you say that there was a suspect in custody involved with this incident, or is that still?
At this time, there is no suspect in custody. We may have charges pending as the investigation unfolds, but at this time, no one is in custody. However, I would like to reiterate that there is no threat to the public. At this point, it's too early to determine exactly what the cause and manner of death are. At 1 o'clock today, our forensic investigative unit will be working with our pathologist at Olean General Hospital to complete a post-mortem examination to determine that cause and manner of death. And at that time, again, Trooper O'Callahan will be able to provide further through our NYSP news outlet webpage. That is correct. No, we are not looking at for any active suspects at this point. But again, it is actively being investigated. We have multiple scenes that are being investigated throughout quite a large area, both on White's Drive and, at an additional location on the Cattaraugus territory. Correct. It appears that the initial incident occurred in one location, and then a vehicle was driven from that scene, and approximately 1,200 feet from that scene is where the car was located. At this point, we're still investigating all that, and we're working with the families to find out the true dynamic of the situation, how they know each other, if they're close, if they're relatives, etc. Again, more of that will come in the future, but at this point, we are still putting all the finalization on that part of the investigation. The car belonged to one of the victims. One of the deceased victims. There was a third victim who was treated for minor injuries at ECMC. However, he's already been released and is cooperative with the investigation. That's correct, yes. Both are gunshot victims. Yes, by the time law enforcement and emergency response personnel from the medical services arrived, both of the victims, were already deceased, and the third was treated for his wounds and transported by Gowanda EMS. Not a deceased victim, just an injury. He had minor injuries. He went to ECMC, and he's since been released.
Are you allowed to disclose whether that particular individual is subject to those charges that you were?
At this time, we don't have any charges pending on anyone. It's an active investigation, and anything we uncover could result in charges being filed. But at this point, we're looking at every party that was present at any part of the events that occurred throughout the evening leading up to the shooting, which occurred again around the 11:20, 11:27 hour when it was reported. They had injury. At this time, I can't specifically say. I have not personally seen the medical records, but we have investigators that are working with the hospital staff, as well as interviewing the individual who had the injury. But it is non-life-threatening, and again, he has been released at this time. Yes, it is. It's another 23-year-old male, also from the Seneca territory.
So, judging the vehicle, one of the victims drove up to that scene, shooting took place there, and then that's kind of how everything unfolded. There's just one scene specific with the shooting, but someone coming into the scene.
As far as the beginning of your question, we're still working through those specifics as far as how they all arrived there, whether one drove or they all drove together. But yes, the shooting occurred at one end of White's Drive, and then after the shooting, the vehicle traveled to the location where it was located on the other end of White's Drive. No, there was only one shooting incident location, and that's probably approximately quarter mile to a half mile from Indian Hill Road down White's Drive. Certainly tragic. As far as unique, maybe in the world today, we're seeing more and more of this. We don't see that much of this type of incident, specifically homicide or shooting incidents with significant or fatal results on the Seneca territory. A lot of that, I believe, the local law enforcement as well as the marshals and the leadership at the Seneca Nation, they do their best to try and maintain as much of a good living environment as they can.
Around like 8:30, we saw a body being brought out to the coroner's car. Was that just uncovered at that time, or why was that still there after the event?
I'm not certain which of the victims would have been transported at that point. I don't have a specific timeline in front of me to be able to say which one or from what scene that was at. These investigations are very dynamic. They take a significant amount of time. There's oftentimes search warrants that need to be authored and applied for in front of a justice. Getting people from different units, different agencies, the coroner's office, everybody needs to come together in order to make the investigation happen and to do the removal properly so that nothing is missed that could hurt the investigation at a later point. Certainly, a 911 call was made at approximately 11:27 p.m. last night on August 4th. Multiple law enforcement agencies responded. The New York State Police out of SP Collins, the Erie County Sheriff's Department, the Cattaraugus County Sheriff's Department, and the Gowanda Police Department all responded, as did the Seneca Nation of Indians Marshals from the Cattaraugus Territory. They all responded not knowing exactly what we had, but a report of gunshot victims. And upon arriving, that's when we began to realize that we had a homicide investigation. No, no standoff to that I've heard about at this point. That's news to me. I would say at any incident, there's always some information that gets misconstrued or misspoken. The old phone tree game that gets played in kindergarten, right? So that's news to me about any standoff. No struggle. And again, we have no one that's turned himself in. There's no suspect that's in custody at this time. At this point, I believe, and again, I do not have that right in front of me, but I believe it was a family member of one of the victims who made a call, and it might have even been through an additional family member that they went to another house to make that call. Correct. With the multiple scenes, the shooting occurred at one end of the road. They responded to the residence of one of the victims, and following their response to that home, in the moments immediately following that is when the call came in. We have nothing to point us in that direction at this time. However, the investigation is still active, and we're conducting many more interviews before we're complete. Correct. If you would have traveled past the vehicle that you were able to see from Indian Hill, approximately another 1,200 feet is where the shooting incident actually occurred. I can say I don't have an exact number, but there were multiple rounds. A minimum of 9 shots were fired at the incident scene. We have a weapon and we have several spent casings, but until we're fully done processing all the scenes, I don't want to give a specific number. One weapon has been recovered at this time, correct.
With the one victim being 18-year-old, do we know anything about whether they were a recent graduate of Gowanda?
I don't have that at this time. I know we'll be looking into that and coming up with anything we can for possible motive. But at this time, we do not have, or I do not have that information to provide. Correct. We've had a tremendous level of support and cooperation from everybody involved, from all the families, from the Seneca Nation leadership with President J.C. Seneca, as well as the Seneca Marshals and all of our partnering law enforcement community. One more question at this time, and then, as I said before, Trooper O'Callahan will be offering further updates as we get information that we can provide. Correct. At this time, we have absolutely nothing to suggest that anyone is in danger. It's a tragedy what happened to these 2 victims that lost their lives, as well as the other that was injured. But we have no reason for public concern or alarm. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Presser, it'll all be done through our newsroom.
Okay.